Hello. Visiting stately homes is something we associate today with organisations such as the National Trust, English Heritage and the Historic Houses Association, a widely available pleasure. But it's not a recent interest, it has a long history, although ordinary working people would not have been welcomed in the past. Normally letters of introduction were sought beforehand, but when the practice became increasingly popular from the mid-18th century, with improved roads, stagecoach services and sprung carriages, providing one had the right social standing, people simply turned up with the expectation of being shown around by the housekeeper and head gardener in return for a generous tip. Of course, many owners would spend considerable periods away from their country bases, either for social or business reasons. Prime Minister Robert Walpole laid out a small fortune on Houghton Hall, but only managed an average of 4 weeks a year enjoying country life in Norfolk. Georgiana, Duchess of Devonshire, typically spent around 3 months a year at Chatsworth House in Derbyshire, and the rest of her time either at Devonshire House in London's Piccadilly or lodging in Bath. Curtailing of the European Grand Tour during the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars in the late 18th and early 19th centuries gave added impetus to country house visits in Britain. It's in this period when we also see the introduction of lodges at the entrance gates to long drives for the reception of visitors. This is Heath End Lodge at the National Trust-owned Cork Abbey in South Derbyshire. Whether the purpose was ensuring privacy or simply vetting visitors is unclear. When Richard Temple, Viscount Cobham, one of the richest men in 18th century England, remodelled Stowe House in Buckinghamshire, adding a showpiece neoclassical south facade overlooking newly landscaped gardens, his aim was a public display of status. His property was open to visitors from the beginning. A guidebook was produced, and although such publications were uncommon at the time, Stowe wasn't alone in making one available. And to accommodate sightseers, the new inn was built at the entrance to the grounds. The gardens at Stowe have been in the care of the National Trust since 1989, and what was the inn now acts as a visitor centre. The house is owned by a preservation trust and home to a private school, but it is regularly open to the public for a small charge. Early visitors to Stowe House and Gardens included royalty, members of the aristocracy, writers Alexander Pope and Jonathan Swift, and future US President John Adams, who also paid visits to several other stately homes, including Woburn Abbey and Blenheim Palace on the same trip. In Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Elizabeth Bennet and her uncle and aunt, Mr. and Mrs. Gardiner, famously pay a visit to the fictional Pemberley estate of Mr. Darcy. Pemberley was based on Chatsworth House, close to Bakewell, where Jane Austen was staying while writing a novel. It's a fictional account of a visit, but true to the way these things were carried out. Visitors' books were often kept, but few have survived to give any real idea of the extent to which guests were received. Horace Walpole's Gothic revival villa, Strawberry Hill at Twickenham, now looked after by a trust, was probably exceptional in averaging around 300 groups annually, leading to the quip that Walpole should consider marrying his housekeeper, who was making a fortune charging visitors a guinea a time. Also popular was Palladian Wilton House near Salisbury, still home to the Earls of Pembroke, where more than 2,300 visitors were recorded in 1773. What was the point of visiting? Partly I think it was down to curiosity, seeing how others lived, and perhaps looking for design ideas. Before beginning work on Strawberry Hill, Horace Walpole visited several properties in search of architectural inspiration. Visitors could be highly critical. Scottish politician and lawyer Sir John Clarke's assessment of the Earl of Carlisle's Castle Howard in Yorkshire, still owned by a Howard family company, was that it failed to live up to the promise of its grand exterior, declaring, "Beside the saloon there is not one good apartment." He was equally dismissive of Lord Burlington's Neo-Palladian Chiswick House in West London, now looked after by English Heritage. The diaries of John Byng, Viscount Torrington, record 14 tours of England in the 1780s and 90s. His terse summary of the Earl of Warrington's Dunham Massey Hall near Altrincham, now a National Trust property, was modern, red brick, tasteless. He preferred Hardwick House to Chatsworth, foolish glare, uncomfortable rooms and frippery French furniture. Edward Harley, Earl of Oxford, thought Robert Walpole's Houghton Hall neither magnificent nor beautiful, great expense without either judgment or taste. Next time, the romantic attraction of the country house lifestyle and the industrialists and financiers joining the ranks of the landowning gentry. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like and subscribe buttons and click on the notification bell to be informed when the next video is available, or you can subscribe by clicking on the rose window over my shoulder.